What's going on, Lakers fans? Doug McCain here. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMac_LA. So the Lakers, they have their 3 finalists for their next head coach. We're going to dive into that in just a second. But quick reminder for all the latest Lakers news and rumors all offseason long, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. And if you really want to support the channel, smash that like button. And as always, I want your takes down below in the comment section. Today's Lakers 24-8 question of the day. Who do you want to see the Lakers hire as their next coach? Do you want Darvin Ham? Do you want Kenny Atkinson? Or do you want Terry Stotts? Let me know down below. And for all latest Lakers news, head over to alllakers.com. What's going on, Laker fans? D-Mac here, and we've got some breaking news that we're going to dive into. Shams Charania just tweeted that the Lakers have their 3 finalists for their open head coaching position. He tweeted out just minutes ago, sources, finalists for the Los Angeles Lakers head coaching job: Bucks assistant Darvin Ham, Warriors assistant Kenny Atkinson, and former Trailblazers coach Terry Stotts. Next stage of interviews are expected to take place in person in Los Angeles. And as always, I'm joined by my man, Lakers insider Eric Yulo. He writes, of course, for alllakers.com, the affiliate of Sports Illustrated. What up, Yulo?
How you doing, Doug? Excited to talk about this. Finally, a breakthrough after weeks of the Lakers just not really doing a whole lot with their coaching search, just interviewing people.
Yeah, I mean, they've been methodical. They've interviewed a bunch of guys, but now we have our final 3. And one of the names was the name that we threw out at the end of our top 10 coaching candidates. Not a lot of people out there mentioning this name, but he snuck his way in as a finalist. What are your initial thoughts on this list of 3? But first, we're going to start with your guy, Kenny Atkinson, the guy that you brought up at the end of our video a few weeks ago.
Heavy Pat Riley vibes. I'm not promising any championships, but I think he's an interesting candidate. I think the fact that he does have some head coaching experience, but he's not too long in the tooth. Like, no disrespect to Terry Stotts, but I think Terry Stotts is the very safe choice. He's the very conservative choice. But I just don't think that's what the Lakers need right now, nor do they need to shake the whole thing up with some crazy flamethrower head coach. But I think Kenny Atkinson, he has that aura about him. He's had some, he's spending time with the Warriors right now as an assistant coach. I like the pedigree there. I actually don't mind that how the Nets fired him. Like, I don't think that's really a reflection on him. Clearly, Kevin Durant wanted the franchise a certain way, but I really like the idea of Kenny Atkinson in LA.
Yeah, I think that if you're going to strike out on Terry Stotts or on Darvin Ham, and maybe I think that, to me, Kenny Atkinson, he would be my 3rd choice. But of course, my number 1 choice is I hope the Lakers go ham on Darvin Ham. It's a very big Darvin Ham household. I think that when you look at it, he's widely considered one of the best assistant coaches right now in the NBA. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when he's going to be a head guy in the association. Now, what I love about him is, look, we just came from Frank Vogel. He has that very strict defensive system where if he doesn't have the personnel, you can't run his system. They weren't blitzing guys on pick and rolls. You saw more drop coverage. When you look at Darvin Ham, he's the guy that tailors his schemes around the personnel they have. He was instrumental in the offense they developed that really helped optimize Giannis Antetokounmpo in the dunker spot, opened some lanes, created spacing for him. And I also think he's the guy that's going to get the respect of the locker room. You see how his players love him. They adore him as a coach, and I'm big on Darvin Ham. What are your thoughts on him as a finalist?
I love him as a finalist. Yeah, I just kind of want to go back to, I'm surprised you have Stotts ahead of Atkinson on your power rankings. I'm very surprised by that. You're very stout on Stotts.
Okay, yeah, we'll go back to that. So to me, honestly, in a perfect world, I want to see Stotts come in as the offensive assistant along with Darvin Ham. I think that'd be perfect. But when I look at Terry Stotts versus Kenny Atkinson, I think the thing with Kenny Atkinson, when you look at his time as the Nets head coach, he was a guy that really liked to stagger those minutes. He really liked to have those minutes restrictions and mix things up. When I look at Terry Stotts, I kind of went back and I watched a lot of his offense with Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. And this guy just has a knack for creating open looks and getting quality shots. And I think last year when we saw that offense so stagnant, I think Terry Stotts is a guy that you could plug in and he could maximize what the Lakers have with their offense next season. Whereas Kenny Atkinson, I think, like you said, he's got the Pat Riley-like charisma. I think that he's a very likable head coach. But I think if we're looking for a plug-and-play guy, I think Terry Stotts would be my guy over Kenny Atkinson. I wouldn't be mad at Kenny Atkinson. I just want to point that out. It's not like there's a Mark Jackson on this list where I would just detest best. And I would just, be in the fetal position in the middle of my living room crying over. I like all these guys to different degrees, but I think Terry Stotts is the guy that, look, he's had a lot of success up in Portland. He got them to the playoffs pretty much each and every year. Yes, his defense suffered at times, so I think a lot of that was personnel driven as well. I think his defense, not very sophisticated, they don't create a lot of turnovers, but I think from an offensive standpoint, we know this is an offensive league. To win the championship, you had to play defense, but I think Terry Stotts, I would take him over Atkinson. I would rank him right now. I would go Darvin Ham 1, big time number 1, and then 2, I would go Terry Stotts, and then Kenny Atkinson as a close number 3. It's the gap between 1 and 2 is pretty wide, but the gap between 2 and 3 isn't that wide. What are your thoughts on Terry Stotts, though, as a potential head coach for the Lakers?
I don't dig that type of retread. I think you brought up some good points. Like, the defense was never going to be good, right? When you have McCollum and Lillard as your guards, trying to run a defense that's like never really be good for anyone. And would he be interested in like a Jason Kidd-like role where he is the top assistant? I don't know what that means for Phil Handy and Fizdale, but what gives me pause with that line of thinking is this is a Lakers team that wouldn't even pay Scott Brooks to be an assistant. He actually went to Portland instead. So I wouldn't mind Terry Stotts, and I'm like you, I wouldn't mind any of the 3. I just like Atkinson a little bit more than Stotts, and Stotts just doesn't move the needle for me. Not that I think they need to win the press conference, but I don't get a good feeling having Stotts in that locker room with the Lakers. But if he does end up being the head coach, like you said, I'm not going to be lying in the fetal position. But I want Darvin Ham like I want ham on Christmas. Like I want, or Easter, whenever you want to eat your ham. But I really want Darvin Ham. I think he's a great fit for this team for all those reasons you just laid out. He already got the approval from Clutch a couple years ago. So as long as LeBron's on board, I'm on board. And I think it's an exciting thing. I think it's nice to have, he has a little bit of a Lakers connection, but not that huge, way too deep in the family feud situation like a lot of other candidates we've seen in the past. I'm thinking of Byron Scott as a name that comes to mind, as a guy that was not fit for the job, but they gave it to him because of the Lakers family thing.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you on that one. I think what it comes down to, I think that a lot of people don't want to talk about is, would Darvin Ham accept this job if it was presented to him? I was very disappointed when the Lakers hired Frank Vogel over Ty Lue a few years ago, especially when he had the cake incident in Vegas. It looked like he was going to take that job. And yes, Frank Vogel did deliver a championship for the Lakers. So it turned out to be the right hire if you consider it, if you look at it from that aspect. But I think when it comes to Darvin Ham, if you look at this team right now and how it's constructed, can he go in and can he instill his culture with this group of guys, with players like LeBron James that might not be here for the long term? You've heard Anthony Davis mentioned in trade talks. What is the deal with Russell Westbrook? So I don't think it is an ideal situation for a guy like Darvin Ham, a guy that really, like I said, gets the respect of his players. He's a real relationship builder. He's a culture builder. He knows how to connect with his players. But I think if you're Darvin Ham, you also say, look, this is the freaking Los Angeles Lakers. This job does not come around very often. And if he comes in here and he has success, this guy is going to be the next superstar head coach in the NBA. And look, I love the fact that he was a player. He played 8 years in the league. He was also on that damn 2004 Pistons team. He was reserve on that team that beat the Lakers. That team doesn't get enough respect. But I think when it comes to Darvin Ham, the Lakers really need to just do what they need to do to close this deal. They need to give him the vision. They need to make it clear to him that they're looking long-term with him. They're thinking the next 5, 6, 7 years. They're not thinking of him as some stopgap head coach. They want to make him the next great coach in the NBA. I'm definitely with you on the retreads and getting new blood versus old blood. I definitely think there's something to that, especially after what we saw last night with Udoka. I like that freshness of it. So to me, Darvin Ham is the obvious choice. Not mad at Kenny Atkinson, not mad at Terry Stotts, but to me, I hope the Lakers go ham on Darvin Ham. But any final thoughts on these final 3 candidates for the Lakers?
Yeah, I think Udoka's success actually maybe even helps Ham's case with the Lakers. And it's interesting. I'm just worried that the Lakers offer Ham a 3-year deal and he wants a 5-year deal, and it's Tyrone Lue all over again, and we settle for Atkinson or Stotts. Those are kind of my concerns. This front office has proven that they will lowball people, and whether or not he gets to pick his assistants could be another point of contention. But I like all 3 finalists. I like that Mark Jackson isn't on there. I'm happy with the list.
Yeah, that definitely we'll see. We're going to do another video on this and see how this develops as far as negotiating and the final interviews. But yeah, I definitely think that they got the right guy in there, and I'm actually excited that he has made that final cut. But that is our guy, Lakers insider Eric Eulau. You can follow him over at
EULAU.
Yeah, go follow him, guys. I mean, if you're not doing this Lakers fandom thing right, if you're not following Eric Eulau, also go read his coverage of the Lakers over at alllakers.com. Be on the lookout for more videos for Lakers coverage all off season long. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMac_LA. And we want to hear from you guys. Give us your thoughts down below in the comment section. Who do you want to see be the next head coach for the Los Angeles Lakers out of the 3 finalists? Do you want Terry Stotts? Do you want Kenny Atkinson? Or do you want our guy, Darvin Ham? Because we are big Team Ham fans here at alllakers.com. So let us know down below. And for all latest Lakers news, head over to alllakers.com.